Hello everybody and welcome to another Twilight Zone review. Today it is Season 2, Episode 13, Back There. Written by Rod Serling and starring Russell Johnson as Peter Corrigan. Now let me just say that Back There has an interesting premise that ultimately has one very big issue, but the episode is entertaining anyway. So I'll start off here. We get another time travel episode. There's a lot of those. So we start with a group of men at a table, including our main character, Peter Corrigan, and they're talking about time travel, arguing about whether you can change the past or not. And we go a few more minutes, and it turns out that Corrigan is leaving, and he has a drink spilled on him. And when he leaves, he is in the past. And he looks around and tries to figure out where he is. So logically, eventually he goes home to where he lives, and there's a woman there, and he's very confused. He says he used to live there and thinks, maybe he's in the wrong place. He's not sure what's happened. So she tells him she has rooms available. He runs into two other people, a young couple, and they talk about how they're going to a play, and they mention President Lincoln, and he's thinking President Lincoln, so he deduces, that something weird is going on. They then tell him that they're going to Ford's Theater, and they tell him the exact play they're going to see, and he deduces it is the exact date in American history when Lincoln was shot and killed, when he was assassinated. So he bangs on the theater door, wanting to get in to warn them. The next scene, we find him in the police station. We find out he was, taken in for disturbing the theater. And he tells them his story about what will happen. And, of course, they don't believe him. But what's interesting about this, so they lock him up. And one officer is curious. He feels there was a sincerity, in what Corrigan said. And he wants to investigate it further. But it's interesting that he gets completely shot down. The man, in charge tells him not to worry about it. He doesn't want to hear anything more about it. So it's interesting. This one officer felt there was some validity to what Corrigan was saying and wants to check it out further. And also at this time, a man named Wellington comes into the station, and he says that he wants to take Corrigan into custody because he thinks he's ill. He's some kind of doctor or psychiatrist. I don't believe they really say. And this is kind of interesting that they would just let this man that they don't really know take custody of him. I'm not sure if things like that were done in that time, but I thought that was a bit odd. But anyway, moving forward, we go to the second part of the episode where things pick up even more, where Corrigan and Wellington are together. And Wellington is asking Corrigan a lot of questions. At this point, I think we all know who Wellington really is. If not, I won't spoil it till the end here. So, he's asking Corrigan, how do you know what's going to happen? And Corrigan tells him the story. But while he's doing so, he's starting not to feel well. And it turns out that Wellington has drugged him. He says he did it because he's not a well man. But I think we know better at this point. So we go to the next scene after Wellington leaves. And Corrigan's trying to get up and he can't. And he just falls down. He's basically out. And the officer who suspected something was up at that point comes in and finds him. He tells him, I'm convinced, I've tried to get extra protection for the president, but no one will listen to me. So Corrigan tells him, do it yourself, go over there, hurry up, and he also asks about Wellington, and a woman that was there, she's like the housekeeper or something, I'm not really sure, she tells him there is nobody named Wellington here. So Corrigan looks on like a handkerchief type thing, and the initials JWB are on it. We find out this is John Wilkes Booth, the man who will shoot Lincoln. So we then know that Wellington is really John Wilkes Booth, basically. And the next thing we hear, the president has been shot, so it's too late to do anything. And, the officer knows he was right. And very quickly after that, Corrigan says, why didn't you guys listen to me? But he doesn't stick around because he winds up going back to the present. And he actually goes back to where he was. There's a new attendant there who tells him he left only a moment ago. So that's interesting that all this happened in only a moment. That's kind of an interesting premise. And he goes back to the men at the table. And one of the men there is actually the great-grandfather, he finds out, of the policeman, who was interested. He says, he tried to warn everybody of what happened. So this was the same man that was the attendant before he went back in time. It's a little confusing. So basically what happened was it was proved that certain things in the future could be changed, but not everything, which is an interesting premise I'm not sure I really buy. Why would you be able to change some things and not other things? But we know that something did change because the man went from being an attendant to a rich man sitting at the table with them, because of the events that were altered when Corrigan went back in time. I really hope that makes sense. So just if you watch the episode, it makes perfect sense. And we also find out that Corrigan still has the handkerchief with the initials JWB on it, so he was able to bring that back with him. There's a lot of interesting things in this episode. And for a half-hour episode, they actually do get a lot in. It feels like a complete story. So kudos to Rod Serling for that. The direction is also very strong. The acting's pretty good. The fundamental problem with this episode, though, is that ultimately, unless they go in a really weird direction, we know that Lincoln will be killed. There's nothing that can change this. So it kind of really ruins the suspense, because we know no matter what he does, what's really going to happen. They're not going to change a big historical event like that because it opens up too many questions. But the episode does save itself some by changing some minor details, and I think Serling was smart to do that. So ultimately, this is a mixed bag. The main plot is predictable from the beginning, but some of the side stuff that happens is interesting and saves it. So overall mixed, but I like to go more on the side of good with this episode. So I give Back There a 3 out of 5. So 3 out of 5 for Back There. And what do you guys think? What do you guys think about all these time travel episodes? You can let me know if you want to in the comments, and thanks for watching.